Good afternoon, everyone. The next item of business is the selection of the Parliament's nominee as First Minister. A note explaining the procedure to be followed this afternoon has been made available to all members. I have received 6 valid nominations for selection of the Parliament's nominee for First Minister and will now announce the nominations in alphabetical order. The nominations are Alex Cole-Hamilton, Russell Findlay, Gillian Mackay, Malcolm Offord, Anna Sarwar and John Swinney. I will ask each nominee to speak in support of their candidacy for up to 5 minutes, and after the nominees have spoken, members will be asked to cast their vote for the preferred candidate. A separate vote will be called for each candidate, and members can only vote once. When all voting has been completed, any member who has not yet voted will be invited to cast a vote to abstain. There will be a short suspension while the result is verified. I will then announce the results of voting. A candidate will be elected if an overall majority is obtained. If no majority is obtained, the candidate or candidates with the smallest number of votes will be eliminated. I would ask members to note that if we have a vote between only 2 candidates, all that is required is a simple majority for one of the candidates to be elected. Members may wish to record an abstention, and no account of those votes will be taken in establishing whether a simple majority has been achieved. We will then proceed to a further round of voting. So, for up to 5 minutes, I call on Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I, for the first time, can I welcome you to your new place. Presiding Officer, I rise to speak to my candidacy for First Minister of Scotland in an atmosphere rather of hope more than expectation, because elections are a time of choosing. This no different than the last. But the last Scottish election that we have been through was in itself a time of choosing. It was an inflection point at which all of us are offered our instructions by the people who send us to this place. And it also represented the final spoke on the wheel of revival for my party. I'm heartily glad of that, coming as it did after the best general election result for our party in 100 years. Big council gains across the chamber. The Scottish elections last week represented a massive leap forward for the Scottish Liberal Democrats, both in terms of vote share and in terms of the number of seats returned. When looking at the constituency map of Scotland, Presiding Officer, we are the second party of Scotland. We've won in places that we have never, ever won before, and we have taken a massive leap forward and the best result for my party in nearly 20 years. And the measure of that achievement, I think, was summed up well by the Times when they wrote, and I quote, that in the final analysis, it was the Liberal Democrats who perhaps did more than any other party to thwart the nationalist march to 65 seats. Don't take it from me. This is the story of this election, Presiding Officer. As much as I respect John Swinney, he has only known regression in his time as party leader of the SNP. He has only gone backwards in his efforts and experienced electoral decline. And as the old Parliament rose and we were gavelled out of session, he could not have been clearer. He stated for the whole country to hear that if he was to achieve the mandate necessary to go about calling for a second independence referendum, then he needed the public at large to award his party with an overall majority. He fell well short of that. And in large part, it was because of Liberal Democrat gains in the villages and towns of this country, he was rendered unable to deliver what he asked the people to give him. As such, I ask that we as a Parliament now lay those divisive issues aside, that we put talk of the Constitution in the deep freeze and instead focus on the instructions that the people who sent us to this place have been manifestly clear that they want us to focus on. Whether that is the crisis in our health service, which is not a crisis in our hospitals, but actually born of the fact that there is such a paucity of social care in our communities that on any given night in Scotland, 2,000 of our fellow Scots are stuck in hospital, like Margaret McGill, who I raised many times in the last session, unable to go home without adequate care to receive them home, but well enough to do so, stuck in that awful limbo, which leads to cancelled operations, which leads to corridor care in our A&E because people cannot be discharged into the wider hospital. The fact that we all have constituents who've come to see us, sometimes in great distress because their young person or they themselves have been unable to get access to the diagnostics they need to diagnose particularly things around child and adolescent mental health or neurodiversity, told in parts of Edinburgh that they will have to wait 7 years for that. Or they're receiving care in crumbling hospitals that are no longer fit for purpose and in desperate need, not just of refurbishment, but in renewal in its entirety. We want to focus on lifting up Scottish education. We heard just this week the awful results of an EIS survey that shows far too many of our teachers at primary and secondary level are assaulted on a daily basis in their place of work. We want to support them by taking mobile phones out of classrooms and putting 2,000 pupil support assistants in to make sure that those newly qualified teachers have a job to go to, a stable, permanent job to go to. We want to drive down the cost of living by instructing an immediate programme of emergency home insulation to make sure that the coldest homes in Scotland, those most at risk of fuel poverty, are ready for that increase in the fuel price cap that we heard about today, and that those already at risk of fuel poverty, because they don't have a price cap to protect them in terms of heating oil, are protected with insulation as much as we can do to help them. And we need to get Scotland moving again. The early days of this election campaign, presiding officer, were bedevilled by a ferry crisis that brought our island and our coastal communities to their knees at a time when they needed our support. For all of these reasons, elections are about choosing. We offer a vision of hope and of change with fairness at its heart, and I humbly submit my candidacy for First Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Cole-Hamilton. 4 minutes 57 seconds. I'm impressed at your timing there. I now call on Russell Findlay for 5 minutes.
I can beat that. Okay, congratulations on your election. I suspect today's proceedings won't be quite as exciting because, of course, this is largely a foregone conclusion. But I've put my name forward because it gives me the opportunity to put forward my vision for a better Scotland, for a Scottish Parliament that works on behalf of the people who put us here. John Swinney spent the entire election saying that he was going to win, and with a majority. And he said that winning a majority would be the trigger for another independence referendum. His relentless obsession with breaking up the United Kingdom is not what people want to hear. We know what matters most to the people of Scotland: the ever-rising cost of living, Scotland's stagnant economy, an NHS in a near-permanent state of crisis, the impact of immigration on strained public services. What they don't want is a distracting and painful return to the arguments of the past. Thankfully, John Swinney didn't get the majority he said was in the bag, and my party played its part in stopping him. The blue wall stayed blue as we won a hat-trick of seats across the south of Scotland. However, I was bitterly disappointed to lose so many valuable and respected colleagues in my party and beyond. And this is a very different Parliament to the one that came before. And when John Swinney is inevitably elected as First Minister today, he has some big questions to answer. He said he'll work with Sinn Féin to break up the UK, and that victims of IRA terrorism should, quote, move on. And I wonder if he understands the hurt that those comments have caused. And will John Swinney continue to put constitutional paralysis above good governance? When Scots tell him that a referendum is not a priority, as they did in another poll published today, will he listen? Presiding Officer, even without a majority, I fear that he won't listen, because independence will remain the only issue that really matters to him and his party. So here's what a sensible and responsible First Minister should focus on. Grow the economy, back business, don't attack business. Cut taxes for those who work hard and do the right thing. Fix our NHS, schools and other public services. On the economy, let's start with Scotland's world-leading oil and gas sector. The SNP opposes new drilling. John Swinney's party agrees with Labour that oil and gas should remain under the North Sea. Thousands of jobs are being lost, and this is absurd, especially in today's volatile world. Our country is going to need oil and gas for decades, not just for energy, but for manufacturing. And I asked John Swinney, does it really make sense for Norway to extract oil and gas from the same basin that his party wants to leave untapped? I think he knows the answer to that, and I make this promise today. The Scottish Conservatives will continue to stand up for oil and gas. We would get Britain drilling again. People in the North East know that we are the strongest challengers to the SNP, and we came within just over 1,000 votes of beating Stephen Flynn. And if pro-UK voters unite behind the Scottish Conservatives in Aberdeen South in a few weeks' time, we can beat the SNP again. Presiding Officer, we all have a duty to act in the best interests of the people of Scotland. This Parliament has an opportunity to transform Scotland over the next 5 years. A more dynamic and more prosperous Scotland should be our shared goal. A country of opportunity with more well-paid jobs, of lower taxes and less red tape, where hard work and aspiration are rewarded. So let's harness our proud spirit of innovation to get Scotland working again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Findlay. I now call on Gillian Mackay. Up to 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Presiding Officer, and could I congratulate you on your appointment. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that unless something dramatic happens, I should get 15 votes, and I doubt I'll be First Minister this afternoon. But despite that, there is something to be hopeful about. The electorate has returned not only the biggest ever independent supporting majority, but also the biggest ever majority for parties that are socially progressive. Those who lost in numbers at this election were the ones chasing those votes to the right, and that has to inform what we do this session. We acknowledge that the SNP won this election and should have the right to form a government, and we will work on issues with them to make Scotland a fairer, greener and independent country. But we'll also hold that government to account to make sure that ambition matches delivery. We want to see a debate on the future of Scotland as an independent nation, and I hope the First Minister will keep his promise to bring that forward as soon as possible. We've seen how badly Westminster has let Scotland down, making things much more difficult, not just for this Parliament, but for the people of Scotland. We were promised big things in the wake of 2014, but what followed was Brexit, a decade of Westminster failure, a merry-go-round of Prime Ministers and ongoing climate breakdown. People's lives have gotten materially worse, and Scotland must have our chance to choose differently. For the Scottish Greens, independence isn't an end goal in itself. It's a tool that we can use to make Scotland better, where democracy and decision-making is closer to people. And that's why, alongside that push for a referendum, we must use all the powers we have to already to make Scotland a better place to live right now. We all heard during this election campaign the immediate and real impact the cost of living crisis is having on people's lives. There are a whole host of solutions which not only put money back into people's pockets, but help tackle the climate emergency at the same time. Providing everyone with free bus travel would put money back in people's pockets while moving more people onto public transport. We've seen the success of under-22s free bus, and making sure particularly those who are commuting could leave the car at home would help to tackle transport emissions, which we've historically struggled to make a dent in. We're seeing other countries take this step in recent months, and we should absolutely be doing the same. Families are also seeing a large portion of their income being taken up with childcare. Unfortunately, we no longer live in a time where families can survive on one income, so good quality, affordable childcare is a must. This, for us, has to be a universal offering, giving every child the same start and, crucially, making sure that the funding follows the child. Supporting families, and particularly women, to be able to work with good quality, reliable childcare will absolutely help tackle child poverty. Crucially, we need to look at our tax system and how we tax wealth in particular to make sure we can afford these measures that will support so many across society. Making sure that everyone can have a home to call their own, that they can heat that home, that we have good quality public services, that nurses and teachers are paid well, and that we deliver that fairer society. Tax is how we fund these things that are for the common good, and those with the most should contribute the most. It's clear the hopeful vision put forward by the Scottish Greens at this election resonates with the hundreds of thousands of Scots who voted for us. Above all else, perhaps, what people want to see now are actions which make Scotland a fairer, kinder, more welcoming country. Not only do we have a large pro-independence majority in this chamber, but we have a pro-Europe majority and a pro-immigration majority. This is a parliament which not only recognises the contribution of all Scots, old and new, but says Scotland's future is one which looks outwards to our neighbours and friends across seas and borders. The people of Scotland need this Parliament to work collaboratively in the face of unprecedented crises to make people's lives better, both here and around the world. The Scottish Greens are ready to do that. Scotland is ready, so let's make that happen.
Thank you. And I now call on Malcolm Offord for up to 5 minutes. Mr Offord.
Presiding Officer, welcome to your place and congratulations on your appointment. You will be well aware that 250 years ago, Kirkcaldy-born Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations. And today, Smith is revered around the world as the father of modern capitalism, explaining how a country can be prosperous and fair for the benefit of all its people. Sadly, in 25 years of devolution, Scotland has turned her back on Adam Smith. All we have seen from the SNP is record highs in tax and spend, and grievance stoked against the rest of the United Kingdom for cynical political gain. And now, in partnership with the Greens, we are seeing the politics of envy take root. Politics that maybe meant well, but which paid no attention to perverse incentives in housing, welfare and regulation, which have instead made housing scarce, driven businesses bust, put workers out of jobs and reduced tax revenues, impacting public services across the board. With budgets under pressure, we've seen those who work and those who venture their own savings to create businesses and jobs being overburdened with the ever-mounting bill. They were, at first, those who could afford to pay a little more. But as the bill has grown, they've been asked to pay more and more, with less and less to show for it in return. Bureaucracy has bloated. The engines of our prosperity are straining, and we find ourselves punishing those who aspire, those who are ambitious for themselves, their families and their communities, simply for trying to enjoy a good, decent life. This cannot continue. It must not continue if we wish to build a prosperous Scotland that works for all. We cannot be led by this ideology of impoverishment. If we want Scotland to have world-class public services, to hum with the whirring of industry and the buzz of thriving high streets, and to put a good life within the reach of every Scot. When I went down to London as a young Scot to make something of myself, with just one suitcase, my rugby boots and £2,000 in debt, I went with true treasure. I was a product of the very best of Scottish education provided freely by the state. And I went with these most valuable of treasures, Scottish values of hard work, endeavour and honesty. I do not want to see young Scots have to go to London to make their fortune, as I and many others did. I want them to have ample opportunities to stay in Scotland and prosper. But regardless of how they make their way in the world, I want them to go with the same true treasure, the true wealth that I was given. The kind of state education that Scotland gave me is lamentably rare today, too often having to be bought, whether through paying for private education or by buying a house in the right state school catchment area. Allowing standards and disciplines to so drastically slip, as the SNP has in pursuit of ideological fads, has been to undermine the wealth and opportunity of young Scots. Real life is about incentives, and canny Scots will always work hard if you incentivise them, but not in a broken system of high taxation and welfare dependency that scarcely makes it worthwhile. Meanwhile, these inherently Scottish values of hard work, endeavour and honesty are being actively discouraged by this rotten system at every turn, with grievance and envy stoked in their place. If we want a Scotland of endeavour and enterprise, if we want Scots to enjoy prosperity and plenty, we must urgently, urgently change course. Surely all the proof we need that this current system is broken lies in the fact that 2 million Scots did not vote in this 2026 election, a staggering 47% of the electorate. Compare that to 16% non-voters in the 2014 Indie Ref. The incumbent parties in this chamber should take a good, hard look at themselves. How can Scotland be led by a First Minister from the SNP whose share of the vote fell by another 10%? Consider the decline in votes for the separatist parties combined, from 1.6 million in 2014 to 1.3 million in 2021 to 1 million this year. How can that ever be considered a mandate for separation? And how can Scotland be led by a First Minister from Scottish Labour, whose steady decline can be traced from 56 MSPs in 1999 to 17 today, and whose vote share has halved from 32% to 16%? No, Scotland deserves a First Minister who wishes to build opportunity and prosperity for every Scot, and the only party in this chamber with that agenda is Reform UK.
Thank you. I now call Sarwar, up to 5 minutes, please.
Senator, I congratulate you on your election. I rise to make this speech in the knowledge that we already know the outcome of today's vote. I congratulate John Swinney and the SNP on their election win on May the 7th. My party fought the election on the belief that Scotland needs change. It's an election and an argument that we didn't win. That's disappointing, and I don't pretend otherwise, but I think it's important to convey what I still believe today. Our politics, our Parliament and our country does need to change, and we have a collective responsibility to represent and serve the people. And in the current climate, I believe we have a responsibility to bring our country together and to take on the politics of fear and blame. Because while the election result is settled, the challenges facing Scotland are not. The need to tackle deep-seated issues in Scottish society remain as urgent today, and this Parliament must rise to that challenge. We need a government that will focus relentlessly on the things that matter: growing our economy, supporting our high streets, driving down waiting lists, improving access to primary care, providing dignity in the delivery of social care, making life more affordable, giving every young person the chance to succeed, and supporting our communities to feel safer and stronger. In doing that, we must also recognise the mood in the country as it is, not as we might wish it to be. During this election campaign, one word came up again and again: scunnered. People are frustrated, angry and tired, and they're tired of political arguments that seem disconnected from their lives. And that should concern every single one of us. Because if people lose faith not only in one party or one government, but in the ability of politics itself to improve their lives, then that not only undermines our democracy, but it opens up opportunities for those that seek to divide us. Presiding Officer, half of the MSPs in this chamber have been elected to our Parliament for the first time. This is a historic opportunity for them and for all of us, for us to demonstrate either the best of Scotland or the worst of our politics, to change the culture positively or negatively, to achieve greater cooperation or greater conflict, to trade in bigger ideas or bigger insults. So I would say to the new members and the old, let's not miss this opportunity to do what's best and right for Scotland. That means confronting the politics of fear and blame, not inflaming it. We may come from different political sides, but that doesn't mean we have to dislike or hate each other. We must confront the idea that if someone believes something different, sounds different or looks different, then they somehow have to be feared. Of course, call out and take action on wrongdoing. Yes, have big debates, and yes, confront big issues. But don't generalise, marginalise and demonise, because they might just seem like words in here to each and every one of us, but they are lived consequences for people out there. Because we must remain a nation that looks at its neighbour with compassion, not with suspicion. That's the Scotland we were when my grandfather arrived here in Lossiemouth in the 1940s, and it must be the Scotland we are today. But that also means taking responsibility, not always looking for someone else to blame, because the idea that someone or somewhere else is to blame for our problems, that idea that somehow everything would be fine if it wasn't for them over there, that too is dangerous. Because I believe our country is a country full of talent, full of compassion, ambition and decency. And I'm sure this Parliament is also full of talent, compassion, ambition and decency. Because people out there all want the same basic things. They want our public services to work. They want opportunity to be shared. They want communities to be supported. And they want a government to match the efforts they make in their lives every single day. So while I will not win this vote today, I will continue to argue for the kind of Scotland I grew up in and the kind of Scotland I want my children to grow up into. One that's based in an all of us, not an us versus them. Because our duty, every single one of us, is to come to this Parliament, to act and to serve and to deliver for the great people of Scotland. And let's get straight to work.
Thank you. I now call on John Swinney. Up to 5 minutes, please.
President, so let me begin by congratulating you on your election as our presiding officer. As we begin this new session of the Scottish Parliament, I stand before members today with a clear mandate from the people of Scotland to seek nomination as the First Minister. The election is over, the people have spoken, they have emphatically supported the Scottish National Party, and I offer to form a government to deliver on behalf of the people that we all serve. Not cautiously, not hesitantly, but with purpose, on the issues that matter most in the lives of our people. That is exactly what a government I lead will do. The challenges facing our nation are real. Families continue to feel the pressure of the cost of living. Public services continue to face significant demands. Events in Westminster and across the world continue to impact here at home, and many people are feeling the strain in their everyday lives. So this must be a Parliament and a government that meets the moment, not with incremental change, but with a clear sense of direction and an agenda that matches the ambition people have for this country. Because Scotland is a country of enormous strength and opportunity, a country with the talent, the resources and the determination, not only to react to challenges, but to overcome them. The government I lead will work to build a Scotland where families are supported through the cost of living crisis and where the pressures they face are eased, not ignored. A Scotland with a strong modern National Health Service that is accessible, resilient and there for the people when they need it. A Scotland where businesses grow, good jobs are created and economic opportunity exists in every part of our country. A Scotland with safe communities and secure energy. A Scotland that leads the way in clean renewables, protecting our environment and turning our natural advantages into lasting prosperity. A Scotland that is fairer, where we reduce poverty, tackle inequality and ensure that prosperity is shared. The government I lead will also press for the future of Scotland to be decided by the people of Scotland. The people have again returned a pro-independence majority to this Parliament, the largest ever elected. They have said with a resounding voice that decisions about Scotland's future should be taken here in Scotland. And I will ensure that the people have the right to decide on their own future. That is the agenda I offer the people of Scotland. It is ambitious, it is practical, it is ready to be delivered in this new Parliament with a new mandate and a government determined to get on with the job. I recognise, Presiding Officer, that no government delivers alone, and certainly not a government that alone does not command a majority in this Parliament. This Parliament contains strongly held and sometimes very different views, but I am confident there exists in this Parliament a majority for all of the policy proposals that I brought forward in the election. The challenge for me, which I readily accept if I am elected as First Minister, is to work in ways that enable that majority to emerge. So, in addition to setting out the policy direction of the government that I offer to lead, I also set out a willingness to work with others in this Parliament to seek agreement on measures that will improve the lives of people in Scotland. Over my years in this Parliament, I have seen this chamber rise to that challenge. Yes, we can disagree robustly, but we can also still work together to deliver for the people of Scotland. And in that respect, I welcome the substance and the tone of Mr Sarwar's comments, because that is what Scotland needs of us at this moment. Not simply debate, but delivery. Not simply difference, but progress. And ultimately, it is by that progress that we will all be judged. Presiding Officer, I am ready to lead a government that meets this moment with clarity, energy and purpose. A government that takes action. A government that delivers. And a government that is always on Scotland's side. Presiding Officer, with the mandate we have been given, with a clear plan for the work ahead and with a determination to deliver for the people of Scotland, I ask for the support of this Parliament to serve as Scotland's First Minister.
Thank you, and I thank each of our 6 candidates. They were all very well behaved, none of them over time, and I hope that will be a lesson to all of you in this chamber as we move forward. Before we move to the vote, there will be a short suspension to allow members to access the digital voting system. Can I urge all members to have their cards inserted in the consoles to enable you to vote? Thank you.